evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kutin.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider the news of the day. Now, we're taking a look at the lessons learned from the Tanjung Piai by-election. Barisan Nasional, represented by MCA's Wijek Singh, won by a whopping 15,086 vote majority against Pakatan Harapan's Karmaini Sardini, who is from Bersatu. Joining us on the show today, we have Nicole Wong, MCA Youth Chief, as well as Dr. Rais Hussein, Bureau Chief for Policy and Strategy from Bersatu. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Pleasure to have you here. Now, I'd like to begin with your sense, Nicole, of what happened in Tanjung Piai. Nicole, I'd like you to begin with your assessment of what went right for MCA, and then I'd like to hear from Rais what your assessment is. What do you think went wrong with Pakatan Harapan's performance? Nicole.
If put in this way, what has gone right, and then we did it right, which is we have chosen a right candidate who has been never gave up after the GE14, the loss of the seat, and Dr. Wijek Singh has been follow up and then continue servicing, and then of course a lot of contribution and also this helping this kebajikan thing and things like that on the ground for the people regardless of race. So I think this is one of the point that we have chosen a good candidate which is absolutely fit for this by-election.
Right, and so he, of course, had been a two-term MP,
yes,
and he had a long history with the
yes,
constituency. Okay.
All right, Rais, what about you? Your assessment of what you think went wrong for Pakatan?
On the hindsight, there are going to be avalanche of analysts from many people, just like pre-PRK and post-PRK. But one good thing that we have to take from this particular election result is that people have spoken. And people have spoken very loudly. And what is the message that they're trying to get? Please go and get the job done.
Okay,
I think that's very important.
We're going to come back to that precise issue later on, but we'd like to, for you to help us understand things, very simple things, like the choice of candidate. Why somebody much more senior as opposed to somebody young, youthful, or somebody with a maybe deeper history in the local situation. Could you help us understand those kind of considerations? From a Bersatu position, perhaps even a Pakatan position, what went wrong? What do you think? If you had to pick one or two factors, what would you pick?
I think, well, the candidate selection is gone through a very stringent candidate selection process, just like the other coalition or any other party. And PH and PPBM or Bersatu collectively decided on Haji Karmain, who is a local guy and everything, have a solid background and so on. But do remember, there is something called national sentiment. What happened in GE14 was also national sentiment. Johor is organically an UMNO state. UMNO was found in Johor. And the main issue at that point of time in GE14 was that there was a huge moral crisis, moral issues that really impacted the way the voters would vote. Now, coming back to what happened in Tanjung Piai, obviously, as I said, on a hindsight, everybody is an expert. We are still doing the post-mortem. We are trying to judge what really went wrong, what can be done. But I have spoken about this in August 2019. And what did I say then? If PH does not do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then be prepared. We are going to face
punished.
That we are going to have some problems with regards to the election outcome. This was in August. That was a few months ago, for which, of course, I had to go through some public rebuke. But it is all right. The important thing is that for us, for PH, is that this early warning signal must be taken positively.
Early warning meaning you see this as a protest vote for a referendum of Pakatan Harapan's performance?
I wouldn't say it's a referendum of any sort. That's quite simplistic. But for us, for me, I keep on telling everyone, take this as an early warning signal. People have spoken, and we need to focus on things that we need to be focused on.
Okay.
Can I add a little bit?
Yeah. Tell us, I mean, was this a vote against Pakatan as opposed to a vote for MCA in Barisan Nasional?
Can I a little bit like come back to the selection of the candidate? Says that when we chosen a right candidate for ourselves, and then I mean Pakatan Harapan have been chosen their candidates. In fact, and then the races card and all that have been played by them, which is Malay vote for Malays, things like that. But I think this is the important message that Rakyat has awake, that as issues has happened, you know, issues need to be taken, but it's not playing the races card anymore. So I think that is one of the reasons that all the races, regardless of races, has been come back and telling the government that, sorry, please hear our voice, as we want you to settle our issues. We want you to, you know, looking at our whatever needed from the ground and all that, but not politicking everything.
I guess what was really, a couple of things were really surprising to me. The first was the majority, the magnitude of the majority, right? In GE14, I think we lost with raise of the majority.
Yes.
He now won with more than 15,000 votes.
Yes.
And for Pakatan, Pakatan has lost every single one in the 27 polling districts, as opposed to the 11 that they won in the last GE. So for me, that was really quite a stark difference. And I'm just wondering whether this is this really an early warning sign, or is this really, a billboard saying, a billboard of dissatisfaction?
I'll put it this way.
Nicole.
You may put it that this is an early warning, but I might say this is actually, the warning came late as well. What shall I say that? Because, put it this way, you should have aware people's voices, people's complaining about a lot of policy which is you took place without concerning our peoples and people feelings and all that. But what do you call that? By forcing people to take it, a lot of policy, which is some of them which is keep U-turning and all that. So I think since chance given by this by-election, that's why people using this to actually voice out.
Okay, so people use this as a way of signaling that dissatisfaction. Right? I mean, the question of you were a major critic, as it were, within the Pakatan, right? And this is why it's very important to speak to you. I mean, what is it that the leadership does not get? It's been said by observers that the campaign that Bersatu and Pakatan ran was arrogant, that they were insensitive to the needs of people. We had the candidate saying that palm oil farmers ought to be grateful for what they have. We had a prime minister from your party who said that he wants to keep everybody equally unhappy. I mean, is this a consequence of keeping everybody unhappy? You'll lose a by-election.
You see, I was at Tanjung Piai and I had a conversation with the fishermen in Sungai Durian, for instance. And when I look at the boys, 12, 15, 16, when I look at them, I see in their eyes hope for the future, right? Now, the problem that I think, which I've been very vocal about it, I write about it a lot, and not only write, I also participate in conferences and then vocally say about it, is that we need to be focused on the 5 important things. And what is the 5 important things? Number 1, cost of living. If we do not manage the cost of living of the people, we will have a pushback like this. Number 2, quality of living. Quality of living just not confined to better disposable income and all that, even education. 3, creation of credible jobs. I'm not talking about Gojek, I'm talking about credible jobs, right? Number 4, affordable homes. Number 5, affordable healthcare. These 5, which I conveniently call it as the perut economy, the stomach economy. Just don't look at my stomach, it's far from being good. But if we do not address this, whether it's PH or BN, we will see the same pushbacks.
All right.
And that is very, very critical. And if you do not address this perut economy, then the identity politics will become important.
Okay.
That's my concern, my worry.
Let's come back and continue this discussion right here on Consider This. Stay tuned. back to Consider This. Melisa and Sharaad here with you, and we're taking a look at the lessons learned from the Tanjung Piai by-election. We've got representatives from MCA as well as Bersatu on the show with us tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the win for MCA, whether this was seen to be an endorsement of Muafakat Nasional, whether this was seen to be, I guess, the referendum of acceptance of the collaboration between UMNO and PAS. Nicole.
I suppose this is seriously a good training ground for us. Once this Muafakat Nasional, the concept of Muafakat Nasional has been, what do you call that? People thinking of this is actually we are playing the race card and things like that, because UMNO is actually formed by Malays and then PAS as well. Then the Muslim or Malays come together, that the minority, which is the Chinese or even Indians, will be let off. This is a serious matter. But it shows that Tanjung Piai's by-elections perfectly shown this is a workable concept for us. And for us, for our youth session, youth level, you can see 4 of us from UMNO, from MIC, from PAS, and as well as MCA. The youth chief of 4 parties has been working together on the ground very hard, which is a lot of youngsters saying that when you go house to house, walk about, you can't really reach the youngster on the ground. But how are they going to monitor us through the whole periods and all that? They might through social media, they might through our our platform, so that I think whatever we show, we lead by example. It can be seen.
Okay, talking about leading by
Yes.
example, I mean, much of the leadership of Barisan Nasional today is on trial for corruption. There is a real problem for Wijek Singh because he apparently never spoke up on the 1MDB issue. There are a lot of problems with the narrative that you're putting out, in the sense that there are still issues about whether MCA is a junior partner in this coalition. All that, I mean, is MCA looking, I know it's doubled its representation in Parliament from 1 to 2 now, but is this a moment where the party thinks it has a chance to revive itself? I mean, people thought this party was, in effect, dead.
But I don't think this junior partners and all that is take place, and then I mean people.
But that is the perception, is it not, of your party?
Yeah, because it's UMNO and PAS who has started this concept, and then of course MIC and MCA trying to we work together, see whether under this concept. In fact, if you do have a better concept by Pakatan Harapan or whosoever or any other third force, yeah, if it is good for the people, if it is good for the rakyat, by all means people will take it. But somehow, I think so far at the moment, Muafakat Nasional, concept of Muafakat Nasional is still the best.
I want to kind of follow on Sharaad's point, but throw it to Rais now. The idea of this junior member in this coalition. Critics have said that Bersatu has been the weakest link in the Pakatan Harapan coalition. In fact, I think Bersatu has never won a by-election that it's contested in. How, Rais, would you like to address these criticisms?
I think on the contrary, in Pakatan Harapan, we believe all partners are equal. We have PH Presidential Council, Pakatan Harapan Presidential Council, which I used to be a member, and I know how things work. Tun Mahathir chairs that as the chairman, and everybody will speak their mind, and eventually, collectively, with the right consensus, we will decide on issues. So I do not think there is any junior or senior partner. On the Bersatu being the weakest link, I disagree with that. I've been always truthful. When there's something wrong, I will say there's something wrong. That's why in August I said, if PH is not careful, we are going to lose the election. And I was proven right. Now, let me tell you about PPBM or Bersatu. Bersatu, on the contrary, is the band-aid, the one that collects everyone and work together. And Tun Mahathir becoming our chief, so to speak, and lead us to the victory in G14. Of course, do not conveniently forget and negate the importance of people's sentiment. In G14, people were so against mega corruption and all those destruction of the government institutions and so on and so forth. which I'm not going to repeat. If you notice, I have stopped talking about that long time ago.
But Rais, okay, Rais, let me just stop you right there. I mean, the narrative that you put out, that it was Bersatu that galvanized the coalition, is a curious one, considering that the Pakatan Rakyat, then Pakatan Harapan, right, was the foundation, right? 20 years of building a real sense of collective wisdom about democracy, something that people say that Bersatu doesn't necessarily share. That Bersatu is really a splinter of UMNO with a lot of UMNO default settings. And in fact, much of the criticism of the current cabinet has to do with Bersatu cabinet ministers. Okay. You know, Rina Harun, Mr. Flying Car, and so on and so forth.
Well, I'm not going to comment on the flying car. It's my favorite subject, but never mind. Let's go into, you have about 3-4 issues there in one short breath. But coming back to how Pakatan Harapan was formed, being one of those there from day one or day zero, right? It was built collectively because we agreed collectively that there is a reason that we need to form this to save the country. This is beyond the shadow of doubt, number one. Number two, talking about splinters, all parties, most parties, if not all parties, are splinter of sort. Amana from PAS, PKR from UMNO, and the rest of the, you have MCA guys there, you have MIC guys there. So it's no longer the important about splinter or not being splinter. What is being offered? So at that point of time, when we saw such rape of the country, such plunder of the country, we have no choice but to come up with an alternative alliance, alternative coalition, which at that point of time, we all agreed Tun Mahathir is the best person to lead, and that's what happened.
Right.
So fast forward now, I do not think, I mean, if you look at Muafakat Nasional, who is Muafakat Nasional? MIC, MC is not part of Muafakat Nasional. It is just UMNO and PAS, maybe Berjasa. Even they contested again. So I do not know whether this is actually a Muafakat Nasional or a collaboration of Muafakat Nasional plus MCA plus MIC.
Nicole?
For the Penyatuan Ummah, maybe we can say that is actually UMNO and also the PAS is actually practicing, which is the Penyatuan Ummah. But come to the concept of Muafakat Nasional is actually, you can see it doesn't what do you call that? Doesn't only carry weight for Muslim, for Malays. It's actually for all.
Do you want to finish your thought there, right?
No, for me, Muafakat Nasional can exist, Barisan Nasional can exist, MCA can exist, MIC can exist, anything can exist. What happened in Tanjung Piai is, for me, something that I'm already looking at it since August, which I made it public. What was that? People are unhappy.
But the question, you keep coming back to it. Why is it that the Prime Minister has poured somewhat scorn on the manifesto and in some ways led a government that hasn't felt the necessity to keep faith with that document that people voted for?
I would definitely like to talk about the manifesto.
We will let you think about that during the ad break and come back and continue this conversation right here on Consider This. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Consider This. Sharaad and I are speaking to Nicole Wong from MCA as well as Rais Hussein from Bersatu. Rais, I'm going to let you finish the question that Sharaad posed to you just before the break about the manifesto and why Pakatan Harapan has strayed away from fulfilling the promises.
Actually, if you look at the manifesto, it was crafted with a lot of work. It was a laborious work over a period of 8 months.
And I believe you were an initial part of that.
Yeah, I was chairing, not initial part, I was chairing the manifesto committee, and the final product came out of my office. So it was a laborious work, engaging with various stakeholders, everyone that you can think of, and finally it went through the necessary vetting processes with the respective parties in the coalition, then went to the PH Presidential Council twice, which was chaired by Tun Mahathir, and finally the manifesto was unveiled, right? Now, the main gist of the manifesto is you have 10 promises within the 100 days, 60 promises within the 5 years. Remember the word, 10 promises within the 100 days, 60 promises within 5 years. The first tenure of ours. It's a work in progress.
But Rais, the problem seems to be is that the politicians, might finesse this by referring to these kinds of elements. But if the general perception is that the government of the day doesn't really care about its own manifesto, you have a problem.
I think contrary to that, if you look at the first anniversary of what we call Pakatan Harapan in government, Tun Mahathir chose the first opening remark was to highlight the achievement of Pakatan Harapan's manifesto. That shows the importance is there. Work in progress. Boss, remember, I do not like to talk back about what happened in the past, right? But you must accept we have something called inherited liabilities. With that, plus what we want to do, and when the documents was prepared, we were banking on primary sources and secondary sources. The secondary sources is all the accounts of the government that was published. Now, when we become the government, we realize, our debt is not this, this is the problem, that is the problem. So we are working on it. The 10 promises, of which 9 of that has been delivered, only one we are still struggling, that's PTPTN. We are working very hard. We want to find a way. We never said we want to abolish PTPTN. The one who said who wants to abolish PTPTN is Nicole's friend, PAS. Our manifesto didn't say that. Our manifesto says that we defer the payment.
Okay, very quickly, Nicole, just add very quickly.
Add a little bit. Okay, a perfect manifesto, a lovely manifesto has been adopted, accepted by the people. That's why the mandate of the peoples by G14 has been all gone to Pakatan Harapan, because have faith with Pakatan Harapan. But somehow, I know you need time, to fulfill all this, I believe, for 5 years or whatsoever it is. But at this period, but why not, take the manifesto, every one of it, why not take place one by one, but coming out with a lot of, unnecessary suggestions, flying cars,
You mean the focus is not there?
Yeah, the focus is not there.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. Flying car is a rubbish idea.
That's right.
But the manifesto, until today, I stand by it. I think PH stand by it. And they're working very, very hard to deliver the manifesto, and we will.
We're trying to cram a lot in a short period of time. I just want to know, are there going to be repercussions for the current leadership of Pakatan Harapan from the lack of performance that we saw in Tanjung Piai?
I think...
for Dr. Mahathir in particular.
What do you mean by that?
There have been suggestions that he should step down. And
there's been talk of a cabinet reshuffle.
Oh, please. That is very simplistic. One election, PRK, you want the Prime Minister to go. One election, you want to... No. I think that kind of... Now, there's a lot of noises. My mobile phone did not stop with all the WhatsApp messages. And not only that, in all the WhatsApp groups, a lot of messaging. But for me, that is very simplistic.
Okay, let's go to Nicole. I want to ask Nicole this, because Nicole, your party also has a problem. The chairman of Barisan Nasional is, the advisor to Barisan Nasional is Najib Razak. A man stands accused of plundering state resources, right? Is the MCA going to stand by Najib Razak? And is that a story you can sell to the Malaysian public that suggests that MCA is on the right side of history?
It's so obvious right now. Najib Razak himself is actually facing, facing his own problems, and then eventually he have to be busy with going to court and all that. So I think we have to come back to this, like saying the big manifesto which has been promised it, and somehow the small manifesto which is the promises. The promises has been promised during this PRK. Tanjung Piai by the Pakatan Harapan. I think it's good for Daw Sri Vijay Singh right now to actually, as an MP of Tanjung Piai, to keep an eye on that, whether the small manifesto going to take place or not. the allocation has been approved and all that, right? So I think this is important.
So these
right
are,
now.
you mean the promises that were made by Pakatan Harapan in the campaign
because
period?
the big manifesto is 60s manifesto. I mean, need to take place in 5 years' time, right? So for this by-election, I think every promises need to be take place and then fulfilled. Otherwise, Rakyat will be there to monitor.
In the last minute that we have.
Yeah.
Rais, what do you think needs to happen in the short term when it comes to the Pakatan Harapan leadership to turn around the narrative?
I think Pakatan Harapan must immediately work on the 5 important things: cost of living, quality of living, creating of credible jobs, affordable homes, affordable healthcare, and whatever achievements that have been achieved in the manifesto must be properly communicated to the public so the public will know, because they are just the social media landscape have changed all politics. And because of the onslaught of fake news and all the other type of news, we have to have a good strategic communication and to communicate well what we have achieved.
We can have an entire show about the communication of
the lack
Pakatan
of. But so no heads will roll. Is that no heads will roll as a consequence of this?
I'm sure there's going to be some post-mortem. I'm sure there's going to be some serious studies. And I'm sure there's going to be lessons learned, drawn and learned. And I'm sure, although I spoke about this in August 2019, for which I was publicly rebuked, now they will start at least listening. Maybe this man is talking something sensible.
I think last but not least, just come up with a checklist for Pakatan Harapan government.
All right, we'll be keeping a close eye on that. All right, thank you so much, guys, for being on the show. That's all the time we have tonight. We'll be back for another episode of Consider This, same time tomorrow. I'm Melisa Idris with Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for this evening. Good night.